All right, we should be streaming. Sorry for the false start, folks. Didn't know my other channel was set up correctly. So next time we do this, I should be live streaming on the proper channel, which is the Black Nerd Swag channel. So my bad, my bad. I didn't know it was gonna do that like that, but that's okay. Uh, that is okay. So we're gonna get on with this review here. I should be live on the Nerdy Entrepreneur channel. Let me make sure that it's there. Yes, we are where we're supposed to be, and that is great. Let us just check a couple things real quick before I start talking. That is, oh, yep. All right, so great. I am well voiced here. Okay, so I just got through finishing watching the first episode. I thought it was done relatively well. It was nice. I saw some beautiful sights um, of King's Landing and other places that we haven't gotten to see in a little while. And it looks different because it's 172 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen. So it was nice seeing the place, nice seeing the dragons. There was just some very nice things to actually go and see. So I was very happy to see that, to see all that stuff there. So very happy about that. Everything looked good aesthetic wise. Aesthetics were beautiful, and the different characters. Now, overall, the episode was well done. It was a great kickoff episode to the shit that is going to be happening in the next few episodes. Okay, we got 9 episodes of bullshit coming, and we can see why. Well, now I am a Game of Thrones fan, a Song of Ice and Fire fan. I've read the books, including the Histories of Westeros. I believe I, a while back, read a short story called Dangerous Ladies, which features Rhaenys Targaryen, which is the daughter of Viserys, who at the end of this episode becomes his heir. And so, and that book was called Dangerous Ladies or Dangerous Maidens. George R. R. Martin submitted a story about that, and it was about her. So if you want to check that out, you can go Amazon and go check that out and Google it and do that, right? So it was very interesting. Now, this is stuff that, now, of course, they took liberties with things because the history of Westeros, that when George is telling the story, it's the point of view of the maester, whoever that was, and then there's the point of view of the fool and all these other people that are telling this story of what actually happened. So there's a lot of missing things within the written material because it's supposed to act like a history, right? Whoever's point of view is whoever's point of view, versus what we're seeing. So they were able to take some liberties. But just to let you know, according to George, when they were asked who's his favorite Targaryen, Daemon Targaryen, that was the one who was killing people and fucking people in this one. He is the bad boy. He is the bad boy of the family. He does what he wants for the most part. And as far as he knows, he's going to be heir, right? He's the only other male in the Targaryen line at this point. He's going to be the heir. Why? Because the wife and the male child, the little baby, died, right? Both of them unfortunately perished. And because of this kicks off a whole slew of events. Damien is an ass. He really is an ass. And his brother is considered very weak. Now, that is something that is historically accurate according to what we know from written material. So, like, Damon was kind of unstable. And a lot of people, either they loved Damon or they hated his ass, as you can see in the small council and you know how folks kind of feel about old boy. But he's to that point an heir. Now at this point, Viserys has been king for about 9-10 years. Okay, about 9 years he has been king, and he has yet to name an heir. So within that 9-year period, they haven't had any male heirs, any male babies. Not that they wasn't trying. It just hasn't happened. Babies die is very common. This happens, right? And so she's finally pregnant. It's a boy, and of course both perish, which we see in the episode. But until then, there hasn't been an heir named. So 9 years, the heir hasn't been named. Now on top of that, in the show, they started showing you the back of the king's back, that he has a tumor or something like that, a wound that is not healing, and that's cause for trouble because it gets infected or anything happens, he's going to eventually die. And so they're keeping that a secret because he hasn't named an heir, and this is very dangerous to not have an heir named, right? So this is a point of contention within the whole thing. And if you don't understand, the whole House of Dragons is about this terrible, horrible civil war referred to in the books as the Dance of Dragons, where I think, wait a minute, I might be screwing this up because there's a dance of this. I believe this one is the Dance of Dragons. There also is some other war that I think happens before this one, which is a whole other civil war. Anyway, the biggest issues with Targaryens at this point, and without getting too much into the actual like book text, is the fact that folks don't know who's supposed to be next, right? And there hasn't been a female heir to the throne to sit the Iron Throne, right? That's a whole new, like, no, we're gonna have no girl. They're not gonna follow no girl. Now that's part of their system, okay? And so this is the part of contention for a lot of people because they're like, well, if you didn't let so-and-so who had a stronger claim to the throne because she's the daughter of the eldest son. I'm going back, excuse me, let me pause. So remember in the beginning that we see old King Jaehaerys before he dies, and they said there were two people who were vying for the throne, and one was the eldest daughter of his son that died, or one of his sons that died. So technically she should have been queen, you would think, but women can't hold the throne. Now the other one was the male, but the only eldest male heir he had was Viserys, and the council made a decision. So King Jaehaerys is like, I'm not making this decision. I'm gonna give it to the council. Why? Because if he would have chosen her, there might have been a whole different type of history because folks would have been mad and fighting and chose not to honor the banner and all these other things. And so they let the small council figure it out. Or I want to say, excuse me, not the small council. They gathered a council of all the lords to make this decision. And they chose Viserys. So Viserys is king. Problem is, Viserys don't have a male heir either. He a son or two sons. He just has his eldest daughter, and he has his younger brother. So people just assume that Daemon is going to be the heir, but he hasn't been officially named the heir yet, right? And Daemon is a firecracker. He does what the fuck do want to do. So that's a problem. It's a big ass problem, okay? So now we're in a position where the wife dies, the son dies, and we just have his daughter, and we have Daemon, and Daemon goes and does some stupid shit, right? Because he's a firecracker. That's what he does. He's the bad boy. And so now, here's the thing. He does stupid shit. He's not the swiftest all the time. He does these things, and he has a beef with Otto Hightower. Yes, the Hightowers that you know from A Game of Thrones in a series. Otto Hightower was the hand of the king at that time. And he and Daemon did not really get along, right? And he was afraid Daemon's going to be like Maegor, so we can't have Daemon be king. Jesus, no. Hell no. Right? And a lot of people, once again, Daemon's one of those polarizing guys. Either you loved him or you hated his ass. And as we see some of the cruelty and the things that he does, he's a bit of a glutton and everything else. He's just a screw up, but it is what it is, right? So, Otto Hightower, who we're going to get into that Otto Hightower because there's some things about him we need to get into. Whew. Otto Hightower don't like him. Otto Hightower's like, no, you can't have this dude. You can't have him. And then Otto Hightower, I believe, is the one, I might be mistaken, is the one who been spying on homeboy and what he said in his brothel. So he reports everything. He is a snitch. He tells the king everything, which is his job. His job is to be that guy, right? He is supposed to tell the king everything. But here's the other thing. He also doesn't want Daemon to be the heir. He doesn't want Daemon to be the heir at all because he's afraid he's going to be like Maegor the Cruel. Now, a lot of you watching this show who have not read the books or not familiar with some of the history, you have no fucking clue who the fuck Maegor is. So you don't know how bad and how serious this shit is, okay? If you Google Maegor the Cruel, you will fucking understand why motherfuckers did not want Daemon on that shit. Because if they thought he was going to be Maegor, you don't want him. Maegor was a piece of freaking work, okay? A piece of freaking work. He was considered one of the worst Targaryen kings. So, if you thought Daenerys' dad, who was boiling people in their leathers and steels and shit in the middle of court, was a bad dude, go look up Maegor the Cruel. Because I think for some of you, knowing the history of Maegor the Cruel and some of the things that dude did would give you a bit more context to understand why people was feeling the way they was feeling, okay? It's a legitimate reason. It's a legitimate reason why he exhibits qualities that they think he would be like or worse than Maegor the Cruel. And that is a big point of contention, even if you're a book fan. Maegor the Cruel is brought up multiple times. I think he might have even been brought up potentially in Game of Thrones, maybe in the TV series. But in the books, he's brought up a lot because he's just that infamous of a reputation. So we don't want another Maegor the Cruel. So Otto don't want him. He don't want him. So also don't want Rhaenyra on the throne because she's a girl. Don't want her on there either. So Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King, as you see, he has a daughter. His daughter is currently the handmaiden of Rhaenyra, who is the princess who becomes the heir apparent right now at the end of the episode. As you will see, Otto positions his daughter in certain places, and yes, he does. So I'll give you a little bookish history on that, okay? I know this is going all over the place, but this is like the right after the episode reaction. All right, so King Jacaerys, the old guy we see, who's the king who's dying, when he got real old, which we see him, he was sent a handmaiden to take care of him at night. That handmaiden was Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King's daughter, the same girl that we see in the first episode. Now, they didn't put that information in there, so you guys don't know. But in the book history, that's what was done. He was already positioning his daughter to be very close to the royal family and to get in, right? Political moves. So they're not giving you that information, but in the book history, yes. So this ain't the first time she's been in the king's chambers. This ain't the first time old girl has done this before, okay? This is not the first time. I don't know if they, now I watched the scene and she's like, in his chambers? That ain't the first time homegirl been in the king's chambers, okay? So when he says, oh, put your mother's dress on, make her look pretty and stuff like that. So eventually what happens, now it can't be a spoiler because this information is already out, right? But for those of you who don't read the books or don't know the histories or haven't watched any of the other channels that talk about the histories of Westeros and the stuff that goes on, you may not know. But if you've watched the episode and you see how that was rolling, what do you think gonna happen? What do you think gonna happen? So yeah, what you think is gonna happen, what's gonna happen. So he's positioning her, right? Because there's a problem. We need an heir. He knows the king got something going on and he could potentially get sick and die. And he damn sure don't want Damon, and don't really want Rhaenyra either. So he's putting his daughter in place because, if the daughter could, marry the king, because the king is, he's lonely, he's sad, and and he has to marry again, and a little bump and grind and a marriage and then babies would look good, right? It would look really good. So, because it would look really good, he puts her in that position. Because if he, let me give you the strategy. If he can get the king to maybe marry his daughter, or have intimate relationships with her, where she become pregnant, he gonna marry her. Then there potentially could be an heir, which would solve all these goddamn issues, and his house gets raised higher, which is the point. That's what someone like that would want to do. And so you shall see the rest of how that shit unfolds. Or you could just read some of the other wonderful YouTube channels on here that tell you the history behind what the fuck goes on here. So you see how that about to roll down. So Damien gets dismissed after his stupid statements and gets sent back to his wife, who he is not really interested in at all. That isn't, he ain't interested in her. And he names Rhaenyra. Is it Rhaenyra? Listen, there's a lot of R's and Y's and RY's and S's in this shit. So Rhaenyra or Rhaenys? I gotta look that up because I'm getting the names confused, because I'm also thinking about somebody else who's going to be brought up later, who actually becomes the other daughter. But we'll see how many children they're actually going to see, because throughout the situation, because right now we're not at the Civil War, okay? We're not at the Civil War yet. A lot of years pass with a lot of crazy shit happening, where people have a bunch of babies that may not be their babies, babies die, all kinds of shit happens. A lot of stuff happens, and I won't go into that. We'll see some of the episodes later. And there's a lot of people named after other people, and it gets R's and the Y's and the S's, so I might have fucked that up. So I apologize for that. But yeah. I think it's Rhaenyra. Sorry, not Rhaenys. Rhaenys is... once again, you'll see. It'll start to really get in as you go through. So... it's building. If you can sense what's happening, people ain't happy with her being heir, and are hoping the king will do something different, because on the other hand, they don't really want, the small council don't really want Daemon, but Daemon does have a fan club too. So in this whole episode, I love the aesthetic. I love how we see the relationships happening. Oh, back to Viserys being a weak king. I know I forgot to go into that. Yeah, he's considered to be a very weak king. Okay. That's the thing. He doesn't like to make certain decisions. As you see, important issues are being brought up in the small council meetings. Corlys, how do you say that man's name? The black Valerian. Valerian. I'll go into a little history lesson in there to give you guys context. But the Black Valerian, that a whole lot of folks got mad because they cast a black guy in there. That dude is acting his ass off, because the facial expressions homeboy had on his face during some of the shit that was being said. Yo. I was like, look at this. Like, yo. I believe he is who he is acting as in this show, okay? Corlys Valerian, aka the Sea Snake. Remember, he's talking about a lot of ports. Like, he's in charge of that. Like, his house sigil is a seahorse, okay? He is trying to warn the king, like, yo, we about to be in some bullshit. We got to keep a close eye. We got to do something, because this is about to be some BS. But Viserys don't want to talk about that. You know what he wants to talk about? He wants to talk about the tourney. He don't want to talk about the shit that can wind up putting people in war and all kinds of bullshit that could put their ports in danger. Once again, Viserys is not, he's, even in the literature, he is someone who they said the small council, well, the great council that made the decision that it was going to be him as king versus Corlys's wife, who was technically the eldest, most closest in bloodline, who should have been queen. Like the queen, they call her the queen who never was. And that is damn sure true. She is the queen that never was, right? She should have been queen. She should have been queen for many reasons. And we see, because Viserys is not a good king. He is a guy who probably should never have been king. He is not cunning when he needs to be cunning. He he's very book smart, and he's like is more of a scholar nerd, right? He's more like that, and he's described like that kind of in the literature too. Like, you see that whole model he has in his bedroom? He built that. Like, that's what he'd rather do with his time. And so this becomes a problem, right? These things that are being brought up in the council meeting about, hey, yo, we're having an issue here, here, and here, that is going to be a bigger issue in the series, right? Because he is the king that probably shouldn't have been king. And so issues that he should have been like, yo, people will bring this to your attention, he doesn't want to take it to his attention, right? And the issue that's going to come up over and over again is the heir, which it has been for 9 years. And when he picked his daughter, you will see people are still not happy with the choice. They're not at all. So, he's considered being very weak. We will see that. We will see bad things happen over and over again. And he's like, no, and all that. You'll start to see that. And he is the cause. And a lot of other podcasts out there, especially on YouTube, the ones who talk about the House of Dragons, we'll talk about the House of Dragons. They talk about the Game of Thrones, all that stuff. They talk about that a lot of the Civil War really could have been avoided if Viserys had been a different type of king. If he had been a different type of king, it could have been avoided, but he wasn't. You will see the mess that continues to happen after. Because the only thing is that, now he loves his daughter to death. He does. He loves his daughter. She's the cupbearer and all these other things because he favors her. That's technically not a job she should be having, right? She shouldn't be in the small council. But, and that's a point of contention with some people also, just to let you guys know. So we're going to see how the situation continues to escalate until there's an outright civil war. But we still have a lot of time, a lot of stuff that is going to happen. I don't know if the next episode is going to be a time skip. I don't necessarily think so. But we shall see. But just to give you a little context behind House Velaryon. Now, House Velaryon, you see why they have the blonde hair besides the skin color guy, blonde hair and stuff like that? Well, they technically are cousins of the Targaryens. Now, I will say this, why? Because some people will dispute me on this. Here's the thing. The Velaryons and the Targaryens both come from Valyria. And they both generally had most of them had this blonde hair, purple-eyed, crazy features, right? And they both come from Valyria. And they were prominent houses in Valyria, and they married into each other all the time. So, like I said, they kind of sort of cousins in this. So, when the Doom of Valyria came, they are the other family that escaped. Now, people are like, oh, it's only Targaryens escaped. No, that's not true. The Velaryons, who are from Valyria, the House Velaryon, who was from Valyria, escaped with the Targaryens. They have been marrying into each other since before the Doom of Valyria. So they have a very strong relationship and very strong bloodlines that tie into one another. Okay? His wife, Corlys' wife, who might be Rhaenys, is the one who was the queen who never was, who probably should have been queen, is married to her. Is married to him, okay? And they're in charge of the ports and all that other stuff. This is a house that was excluded from the original Game of Thrones TV series on HBO. That's why you probably don't know who the hell they are. But yes, they're still around. And so they're going to play an extremely important role in this series. So watch out what happens, Corlys Velaryon and the Sea Snake. So these are the two houses that came from Valyria for the Doom of Valyria. It's been over a century and change, more than that, and they're here. He's married to the queen that never was, and they have kids of their own. They have a male and they have a female kid, okay? And so they're there. And they're going to play a big role in this series, so keep a lookout on them and the kids and everything else. But that is the history of them. They were on a small council. They were a very important part of Targaryen history, or the Westerosi history. He was known as the Sea Snake. He's a very important character. We'll see how close they stick to the material with him. And he's going to be someone to watch. But his facial expressions about shit let you already know the bullshit, okay? And so I am looking forward to episode 2 next Sunday. And watching that episode and coming back on here and dropping it, hopefully on the correct channel this time, and talking about this episode. So overall, I enjoyed the episode. It was relatively well done. It's longer than I thought it would be, like a hour and 13 or 14 minutes. I don't think the next episode is going to be as long, but I don't know. It did a real good job of establishing certain people, who they were, particularly establishing the brothers, and what kind of led to this, and showing Otto Hightower, who plays a really big part, and some characters they're bringing in. So there's a lot of mess that's going to be coming, and I think they did a really decent job of trying to build that in, besides what was written in the books, to add a little bit more flavor, because it's a really interesting story about this civil war that damn near wipes out a whole lot of people, right? And this is before the civil war. This is before they get into the shit, right? This is some of the beginnings. He's been king for 9 years, don't have no goddamn heir. The guy who would be heir, this motherfucker crazy. And some people like him, some people don't. You got the daughter, who's there. And, you got people being put in positions, in Viserys, like, kind of thinking his head is a little bit in the clouds and stuff. Once more, a lot of people in the history of Westeros agree that he probably should not have been king, or that a lot of the whole civil war could have been avoided had he just made a choice, a better choice than some of the shit that wind up happening. Because if you don't know, this is what essentially happens. He does wind up having sons after. He winds up having a couple of sons after, and then they fight. When he dies, they fight the succession, but he keeps saying, no, Rhaenys is going to be blah. Even though he knows this shit was a point of contention, even though he knows that he should have switched who the heir was to keep the fucking peace. That's part of the reason people agree that, a lot of this could have been avoided had Viserys had fucking just picked the heir when he had sons, instead of having this shit happen where it tears the kingdom apart. You wouldn't have had the things that happened there. But we wouldn't have also had this great story where we're about to see at the same time. So just letting you know, that's what you got. You got some interesting stuff coming for you, coming up. It's going to be a fun ride, I think. We're going to see how the other episodes go. We have 9 more episodes to go. And hopefully, if you want to tune in and join in, you can tune in and join in and go to the Black Nerd Swag channel. I know it's not playing on the Black Nerd Swag channel. This video will be uploaded to the Black Nerd Swag channel in a few. But that's all I got from now. It's time for me to get on with the rest of my night. I hope you get on with the rest of your night, or whenever you watch this, and tune in next time for a review of episode 2 from House of Dragons. See you guys later.